All right, so friendly reminder again that Ben Shapiro didn't actually do any debates at Politicon. He just did his speech and then did a Q&A, as well as a Q&A with the Daily Wire squad. But anyways, that's besides the point. The point of this is there is this interesting clip that is part of his keynote speech that he gave. This was part of the question and answer period. And essentially what you're going to be seeing is Ben Shapiro is going to be asked about how the premise of the question is that you acknowledge or you make the best case. Actually, he's really saying like you exemplify, you explain, you go into detail about how the left is evil and they're trying to promote evil and they're trying to destroy all of your rights. You know, the left wants to take away your rights. Your rights are in danger of existence because the left is attempting to take it away. And I wanted to look at this because it really shows you just this sort of inflammatory, almost like I want to say like brainwashing going on, where it's like, what are you talking about, dude? Like what? It doesn't make any sense. And Ben Shapiro is going to give an interesting answer, but I think it plays into a bigger picture of the inflammatory rhetoric that comes out of Ben Shapiro. That's some pretty insane stuff. Like he did that Muslim video, which was crazy, and now we know that it's crazy because there are multiple people who have been influenced by this guy, who, as we know, go on to do very very bad things. And while it's like you can't, it's like you have to draw a line when you can give agency to someone for that. But I mean, the amount of things that are inflammatory that come from Ben Shapiro in the first place is sort of unique, honestly, to Ben Shapiro. But check it out, and we're gonna come back and talk about it.
Hi, Ben. I just want to start off by saying that I'm a big fan of the show and I listen every day, and you actually inspired me to start my own podcast.
Oh, great. Well, that's great. Thank you.
So thank you. One thing, though, that I'm a little bit concerned about is I would say that you don't have the best track record in terms. So you make the compelling case as to why we have our rights are under attack. You make the compelling case that the left is a threat for what is essentially evil in the United States. Not evil, but for destruction, the destruction of American values. You basically point that out. But then, like for example, in the 2016 election, you're never Trumper. And if Trump was not elected, we would have somebody else to replace Antonin Scalia. We would have had somebody else to replace Justice Kennedy. In cases like the Alabama election, Roy Moore, we saw recently how important it is to have a Senate majority. And most recently in Brett Kavanaugh. You said that if he was guilty of alleged sexual assault at the age of 17 at a drunken high school at a party, that you would say that he is ineligible to be on the Supreme Court. Now, if you truly believe, and like for example in 2008, Heller versus DC, where we were one vote away from misinterpreting the Second Amendment, why would you suggest that we have to forego these clear victories? I think it's a moral mystery of how endangered we are as Americans to lose our rights and to lose this great rhetorical battle between right and left.
Yeah, so as I said during the 2016 election, if you believe that 2016 is the last election, then you have to vote for Trump, right? If you believe that we're really on the precipice of tyranny and like full tyranny, and that we're never going to have there'll never be any recovery for the country, we're literally at the cliff's point, you have no choice but to vote for the lesser of the two available evils. One of the, what I also said is that, you know, as far as President Trump, number one, I appreciate all the good things that he's done, right? I cheered Gorsuch. I put on a MAGA hat when he picked Gorsuch, right? I've cheered Kavanaugh to a certain extent, although I still would like to see his record on the bench. But you know, when it comes to tax cuts, when it comes to Middle Eastern policy, when it comes to moving to the embassy to Jerusalem, when it comes to taking a harsher stance against Russia, an actual harsher stance, not just words, but actual harsher stance. President Trump's been great. On policy, he's been really, really good in a lot of different ways, and I'm very grateful that he proved me wrong on all that stuff. With all of that said, my main concerns about President Trump were three. Two of those three have been alleviated. One of them has not, and this speaks to Roy Moore. We still need to live in a country together, and as we fall into the trap of saying that every decision is a lesser of two available evils, we are going to start greenlighting worse and worse behavior and worse standards in the name of beating the other guy. And that's what you're seeing with things like Roy Moore. Okay, so Roy Moore, would he have voted for more of my priorities than Doug Jones? Of course he would have. Does it lower the general standard of America to have a credibly accused? Yes, of course it does. And if we are not willing to forego some temporary victories in order to preserve the character of the country, if you believe that there is still a social fabric to preserve, then we are contributing to the breakdown of that social fabric. Now, maybe you believe the social fabric is gone, and we're basically at that point. If you believe that, then of course you have to back Roy Moore or whomever, because you're preventing the ultimate evil. This is why while I deeply despise leftist ideology, I think it's a mistake to castigate everybody who's on the political left as an enemy of the United States, or to castigate the press as an enemy of the people, or this kind of stuff. I think it's dangerous stuff because it actually brings us closer to civil war than it does to any sort of cure for what ails the country, even though I deeply disagree with the folks on the left. As far as President Trump in the 2016 election, where I stand for 2020, I had three main concerns with President Trump. One is that President Trump was not going to govern conservatively. That was based on his rhetoric, which was all over the place. He has completely alleviated my concerns on that score. He has governed very, very conservatively, which is terrific. And I'm deeply grateful for it. The second concern that I had was that he was going to soul-suck the Republican Party to the extent that we were going to greenlight a bunch of policies and or character issues that we really didn't like. And there I think I was half right. I mean, you have the party now basically when he says stuff that, like, the office of the presidency had been previously disgraced by Bill Clinton. It's not a great thing that the president of the United States says horseface, right? I mean, like, these are not wonderful things. And so that's, but my view there is that the damage has sort of already been done, right? He's not doing any worse damage today than he was doing yesterday. He's just being himself, which is, like, the damage was done the day he entered the office.
So as you guys saw there, it was apparent that this guy is somebody who's a fan of Ben Shapiro and basically says that, you know, you make the case and do so very convincingly that the left is attempting to take away, attempting to confiscate the rights of the American people. And that, you know, that thing, when I heard this, because I watched a part of it, like a good chunk of it, but it's like that exemplified to me this sort of massive inflammatory rhetoric and just this overall brainwashing of this craziness where it's like, we're not trying to, what does that mean? What do you mean we're trying to take your right? But forget the take your rights part though, because he literally said that, you know, they want evil and destruction. First of all, when I first heard that, I thought of Mermaid Man in SpongeBob where he goes, evil, but that's not the point. Anyway, so the idea that the left wants evil and destruction, which is literally the opposite of what the left wants, but regardless, right? That sort of thing, and Ben Shapiro doesn't even, the probably the worst part is that Ben Shapiro doesn't go, oh, well, you know, no, I don't think that, you know, the left, I just think they're wrong. Like, he doesn't even say that. He doesn't even say that. He doesn't go, oh, no, I don't agree that the left is, you know, left wants evil and that they want destruction of your rights and confiscation of your rights. He doesn't even say that. Instead, he rolls with the premise. He doesn't challenge the premise in any way. And all we can, you know, sort of infer from that is that he's in agreement with the premise, which is a scary thing, to be honest with you. And as I stated earlier, there have been now multiple people who have done very bad things who have been massively influenced by Ben Shapiro because of his insanely inflammatory, crazy rhetoric. Now, the other part about this that he goes on to talk about, because the guy is talking about how, you know, he was a never Trumper and brings up the example of Roy Moore. Now, the thing is that if you're willing to support Roy Moore based on party lines, that's a really sad thing, because we all know about Roy Moore. He's a disgusting person. There were so many allegations against him. It was pure insanity, right? I mean, there were so many people. And this is the craziest thing, too, is that despite all of that, Doug Jones barely won. Doug Jones barely won. He actually had like a late election comeback. I was actually covering it live, and basically all throughout for the majority of the election, or while the votes were being counted, he was up. Roy Moore was in the lead. But Doug Jones essentially came in at the end and swooped in and won because all of the conservative areas had been counted up, and the areas where Doug Jones was much more popular were still coming in, and so he ended up winning. So, and it was barely a win. I forgot the percentage, but it was really small. I want to say it was like less than 2%. I forgot already though. It was a while ago. But the idea of supporting people like Roy Moore and different things like that is pretty insane to me. Now, Ben Shapiro was a never Trumper during the election, but as president, he hasn't been a never Trumper even in the slightest, really. I mean, he essentially agrees with all of his policy positions pretty much. I think he just doesn't like how he makes the conservative right look bad because of how much of a douche he is. With all the garbage that he's saying. I mean, I covered the other day how Trump is like, I could tone up my rhetoric. It's like we need someone to unite us right now, and instead of having a leader who can unite us, instead what we have a angry orange doofus, if you will, who is totally incompetent to be president. And he makes them look bad, and I think that's all that Ben Shapiro actually disagrees with. But the point here being that if you're willing to vote for someone like Roy Moore or support someone like Roy Moore or Brett Kavanaugh, you are somebody who is, I don't even know how to explain it, but you're just pretty much insane. That's crazy. It's insane. It's insane, especially Roy Moore. The fact that Republicans almost voted in Roy Moore is pure insanity. It's unbelievable how crazy that is. It's unbelievable. I can't understand it even in the slightest. But I had to speak about this because when I had heard it, it's like this idea amongst the right that I guess is sort of pushed into people's brains by people like Ben Shapiro, as we just saw with that dude, is, the left wants evil. They want to take away and destroy your rights. They want destruction. It's like, what? What the fuck are you talking about, bro? What is wrong with you? Like, do you hear yourself when you're talking? Like, you sound like a conspiracy theorist moron. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? It's just insane, man.